Rebag has been robbed. Hey guys, it's Jess from She's Posh. Welcome back, and today I have some little bit of breaking news. I'm sorry this video is coming up a little bit later than when it happened. If you want like breaking news when I hear things, please follow me on Instagram at She's the Posh because I put it in my stories and then you'll be up to date with everything. But if you haven't heard, Rebag, the Acadia store in the mall that is in California, was robbed this past Sunday at 1 p.m. And they did a smash and grab. So they had hammers, they smashed, it looks like they went for the watches and some handbags. It was the only store that was targeted at that time. Then the assailants like drove off and they were in one of those white vans that everybody seems to have when they're a criminal. You ever see it on the highway, you're like, oh, white van, stay away. I never parked next to a white van kind of thing. When I saw that, it prompted me to read the terms and conditions of Rebag because I was wondering, because they have this new consignment, what does that mean if your watch or your handbag was being consigned and it was at that location? And I really didn't realize how many different locations that Rebag had until one of my bags came back from Florida because it was there, even though I gave them no permission to sell it. So it made me wonder what would have happened if that bag had gotten stolen. Would I be compensated for it? I thought I would look back at the terms with you. And I also have some inside scoop of someone that went to that store on the Tuesday after the robbery and what they saw. So let's first get into the robbery after the fact. I am on the Purse Forum. I don't know if you guys are on there. She's the Posh on there, same name. And someone had mentioned that they just went there Tuesday and it was completely terrible. So what happened was they didn't know about the robbery. To be honest, like I haven't heard anybody else talking about the robbery. I found out on the Purse Forum. So let me know if you guys heard other YouTubers that are posting this, but she had wanted to initiate a trade for an item. She had something come in that wasn't as subscribed, so she likes to go to the store to exchange. She was going to do a trade. Not sure what it was, but that's what it sounds like from when she was describing, and she loves to do this, but this particular store is a couple hours away, so she called beforehand because she was having problems with the website, like who doesn't? She calls on Monday. So this is after it got robbed. It got robbed on Sunday. She calls on Monday, talks to someone in that store, explaining what she's doing and that she's coming Tuesday so that there shouldn't be any confusion. And they knew she was coming ahead of time because she knows it's the holiday season. You would just make sure, if she needed an appointment, she could get an appointment time, however they do it there. She arrives on Tuesday and the doors are locked and the blinds are down and she's obviously confused. So she knocks on the door, someone comes to the door and they tell her, hey, we're closed until further notice because of the incident. Doesn't say robbery or anything. And she's like, but I called yesterday and you told me I could come. Like I have an appointment for today. Like someone should have notified me. She goes, I need to talk to the manager. And she said she felt bad getting all Karen on them. You shouldn't, because she said she traveled like 3 hours to get there to initiate this. And she was called ahead of time. So it's not like she just showed up. She actually called ahead of time. So I completely understand. Don't be upset about becoming a Karen. I've had to become a Karen to Rebag and it still hasn't worked apparently. She went there and a manager came to her and said he was sorry about everything, but they would accept the trade because she did call. So they unlocked the doors, they let her in. And what she saw, she's like, yeah, everything was empty. And she goes, and what was still there? It seemed like items that they were packing up. So she wasn't quite sure what was going on there. So I don't know either. If you are in that area or you're near there, if you want to check them all and give me the scoop and let me know if they're closing. But she said that's what it looked like to her, that they were packing all the items up. And especially this time of year, you would think they would try to get open as soon as possible. And there was still police there from the incident on Sunday, and this was Tuesday. So I found that interesting there. But when you go online and you look up that store on Google, it is still showing as being open. And I do own a business, and I know you can go onto Google, you can access, you claim your thing, and you can adjust your hours and you can say closed or not closed. So it's confusing to me why they aren't doing that. You would think they would have people that are able to do that, but apparently they are not. Again, you should call that store to see if they're even open before you even bother going there. Because this incident happened, I decided to review their terms to see if they've changed anything, because Rebag changed their terms all the time and they don't need to tell you about it. I don't know why that happens, but I guess because I'm assuming every time you check out, you're agreeing to the terms and it's your responsibility to read them. But these new terms, guys, quite interesting. I can't wait to get your take on this. So please, if you are lawyers, because obviously I'm not one, I would love to get your opinion on what you think. Because I've asked some of my other lawyer friends and they just said when they read these terms that they sounded like nobody legally vetted these and that they were done in a rush. That's just opinions. The first thing I'm going to show you is the risk of loss term. So this is the one where I had my biggest argument on why, legally speaking, they owe me the money for the bag. My lawyer told me they owe me the money for the bag, that this is legally binding. I know all that. But the reason that I haven't gone straight to suing and I'm using the government route is because suing, you have to sue in their state. And the value for the bag retail is over $3,000. And the cost for me just starting out with filing for suing them, and the very low estimate is going to be around $1,200 to $2,000. And Rebag does not pay my lawyer fees. It's not something that necessarily would get awarded. It's not like a lemon law situation, whereas if you had bought a car and it was a lemon, meaning that it was costing you money, there are laws for cars. So if you have to sue someone because of the car being damaged and stuff like that, then they have to pay your lawyer fees if they win. But that's not necessarily the case in civil litigation. You are responsible for your fees. So when you're looking at that at the very low end, I would only end up getting about maybe $1,000 to $500 for my bag if I go the suing route to get the money. So the best thing is to let the government try to fight it, even though it takes longer. That might be the best and cheapest way for me to get all my money back. So that's why. In here, it's the same thing where it says you remain responsible for the risk of the loss of the product until the delivery to the same to Rebag. And with my instance, my bag was delivered. The bag that they say never came, was lost, was delivered and signed for. So I have proof of delivery. And there was no notes of damage or anything with that. You are responsible for any damage that may occur to your product while in transit. So if something happened and it was damaged and they reduced the price, it is still my responsibility. Rebag is responsible for risk of loss when it opens the package containing your product and ceases in the event Rebag returns your product to you for any reason. So this is how it originally was, that Rebag opens the bag, they check it into their system, which is what happened. They got my package, they signed for it, and they checked it in their system as received several times. I have email, all of that. For avoidance of doubt in such an event, risk of loss will be transferred to you once Rebag delivers the package to the carrier. So you take on the risk of loss again after Rebag, it leaves their thing. So they only have the risk of loss while it is in their possession and open. So that's what they're saying here. So that's fine. That's what we knew from before. So that hasn't changed. But this part has changed. From time to time, Rebag reserves the right to make an exception to this policy and bear the risk of loss at its sole discretion. Okay, so let's talk about that part right there. So when I was asking my lawyer friends, I said, how I read this is they can decide if they're gonna take the risk of loss at any point. What does that mean? It kind of leaves it vague and it's up to your interpretation. So what it seems like to me, my friend's opinion, that's the lawyer, said it sounds like they would try to argue that for my bag, that even though it was checked into their system, even though they never did the notes of damage, they're going to do an exception of the risk of loss and still say it's not their fault because the first half of the risk of loss policy was met. They're deciding this is a special case and we're not going to take on the risk of loss. Isn't that interesting? Because I filed with New York and I know other people have filed with New York. It seems interesting that they add from time to time. I've never really seen this kind of wording on terms before. And then, do you remember from my video, I have a whole saga here. When my stuff got returned, I had mentioned about the damage to the boxes, how I was missing like some receipts in there, paperwork, and then also that the state of my shoes looked like there was dirt inside. I was like, this is gross. And I shared with you, employees say things are just thrown around or whatever. Well, they added this. Any and all packaging or collateral is not covered by Rebag for any risk of loss. So if you send items to them for consignment or you send it there to sell for a trade and you decide you don't want to do it because they do the bait and switch and they say they're not going to accept it or whatever and they're sending it back to you, you may or may not get your dust bag back. You might not get your authenticity card and they're going to do nothing for you because they're saying we're not in charge of those extra stuff. Because remember, they said my shoes were in a box and that never was returned to me. So they added that part here. It's fine. They're not responsible for you. You don't own that box according to them. They don't have to give you boxes back. They can take them and keep them because they have no risk of loss for them whatsoever. Very interesting why they added that piece. What do you think? I think I'm the problem. It's me because That's exactly what I've been preaching on here. So then I started thinking about consignment. So what would happen for risk of loss with consignment? So let's look at that here. In the event of loss while consignment items are in Rebag's possession, Rebag will only cover the loss associated with the consigned items, and company is responsible only to repay the consignor for the minimum payout. So how Rebag does their consignment, so they kind of have like comparison that you get paid 15 days after the bag is sold. They also do sales on them. What they would probably do, you know how they have the 20% off sale, 50% off sale, the commission items are involved in this sale as well. So they would probably look at your price, what they would get when their commissions are taken out, with it being on sale. So you would get the lowest possible amount you could ever get. But then when you look at these terms, again, for the avoidance of doubt, Rebag will only cover any risk of loss after the consignment item is received, inspected, and confirmed to meet Rebag's authentication and quality standards. So this is kind of interesting. So instead of them taking the risk when they open your item, they're saying you have to wait until it's been in the whole inspection process. Even if they open your bag, even if they inspect the bag, they're still not responsible until they accept the bag. That's kind of interesting. It says, from time to time, Rebag reserves the right to make an exception to this policy and bear additional risk of loss at its own discretion. So this is saying, oh, we could take on more risk of loss if we decide to, but it also means we could say we're not taking on the risk of loss. Should the company decide to cover additional risk of loss, notification will be sent to the consignor to be advised of such exception. Any and all packages, collateral is not covered by that. Please refer to Rebag's risk of loss section in the terms of service for additional details. So basically it is all similar, but they're saying they are going to pay you out for the lowest amount. But my question is, how will you know? Like if your item is stolen, are they gonna let you know? Like, I just don't know how that's gonna work. It's gonna have it listed in consignment and act like it's not gonna sell, and you just let it sit there for a while. I don't know if I trust them to let me know. So if you had items selling or on consignment, I would just check to make sure they still have them and to see if they had them, where they are, if they are still listed on their website here. This is another really interesting thing that they put on here, which is about modification. So this is when they make changes to the agreement, when they make changes like this from time to time. And this is how they're saying that you agree to the new term. Modification. Rebag reserves the right to modify this agreement at any time. If you do not agree with the changes, you may discontinue using Rebag website and or Rebag services. Fair enough. Your continued use of any Rebag websites and or Rebag services after such takes in effect constitutes your acceptance to such changes. So they're saying if I log onto their website, if I log onto my account, they're trying to say with this wording, my interpretation of this, and people I've asked that have law degrees, this is not legal, by the way. This is not something that would hold up in a court of law. However, they will gaslight you, probably arguing, they added this so that when they're talking to New York right now and Pennsylvania, that I agree to the new terms, probably because I always wonder why they left my account open and why they haven't like kicked me out, because they reserve the right. They can kick me out at any time. I'm the person that is blasting them all over, you know, social media, and YouTube and other YouTubers are picking up the story, even though necessarily my videos aren't getting amazing, crazy views. Other people who picked up the story are, and that's all I care about, is information being spread out. So I think they changed this so they can try to argue that they still don't have to pay me, even though the old terms, I fall under that. These new terms, I agreed to it because I have logged onto my account to check the status of my things. So let me know what you think about that one. And each time you submit a product for sale to Rebag, you reaffirm the acceptance of this agreement. So they're saying even if you submit something for a quote and you don't send it in, you're admitting that you agree to this. So like if I would do a quote for something now, even though I didn't send them in, I haven't accepted terms, that would mean that I'm accepting terms, which is, it's weird. It doesn't make sense. You reaffirm your acceptance of the agreement as in effect at the time of such use. You are responsible for reviewing this agreement each time you use the Rebag website. Each time I use the Rebag website, I should check the terms. No, I should check the terms each time I decide to send something to you, each time I decide to purchase something from you, not each time I log on to the website to see if you paid me my money yet. That's not how it works. The last date this agreement was revisited is set forth below. Terms and conditions modify the agreement are effected immediately upon posting. So what do you think about this gibberish and foolishness right here? How do you interpret that? Let's say you're having a problem with Rebag right now. It was under the old terms like I am, and you've logged onto your account to see what's going on. Like I've done that several times. I just logged in recently just to see what had changed with the status of this bag, because it still shows they're paying me. However, it still says partially received. This bag is still there. The other stuff has been refused. So I did log on. I'm like, what is going on? That has changed recently, even though they said this has not been updated since September. And I'm like, I have screenshots. It has been updated since then. So they're trying to say that I agreed to new terms by checking my account. Shady, shady, shady. It should be when I actually do business with you. When I purchase something or I send something to you, actually, like I agree, say, hey, I accept that quote. I'm going to send it to you. That's when the agreement comes. Not, I gave you a quote and I'm like, no, I don't like that. And they're like, agree to everything even though we messed up this last one. Not gonna fly. I will put the actual terms, I will put that here for you. And I just had to share this with you. What are your thoughts of this? What are your thoughts of Rebag being robbed? Do you think it's karma? Do you think something else was involved? Because I know this is all alleged, but opinions on the Purse forum, if you want, I can put that link down below for you. As people have opinions on why the robbery occurred and who was responsible for this said robbery. So I'm curious what you think about that as well. I know smash and grabs are very popular right now in California. It like happens all the time. I feel like I see them on TikTok all the time. But what's weird about this is Rebag's been quite silent about it. And they're literally the victims here. Why aren't they talking about it? Why isn't there anything mentioned about it from them? When I looked at some of the stuff, like Rebag wasn't necessarily mentioned in all the stories. It was a luxury consignment place. You know, you'd see Rebag sign on it and they're still saying they're open. Why is Rebag trying to be kind of quiet about this? Is it that they don't want people to start asking questions about their items that are located there? Or do you think like something else shady is happening as well? Let me know. I don't know how these things happen in California and how people like to discuss them. So that's why I reach out to you guys. And thank you again for sharing articles and stories and stuff with me. Anything else that you have, any other companies you want me to like look into and deep dive, please let me know. It just doesn't have to be a luxury. I am enjoying looking up this stuff and spreading the word and making these companies be held accountable for their actions. And as always, I want to thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again. Bye guys.